All right, welcome guys. Today with me I have Joe. Joe has just completed I would say like 6, 7 month program, working with me all the way since last year, starting before the holidays, no excuses. That's awesome. So Joe, what were you struggling with before joining the program?
I'm getting older. I'm almost 50, and I also have Hashimoto's, like a slow thyroid, and I have to take medication for that. I've been doing that for a number of years. So between my age and, having the challenge of the slow thyroid, those were the things that were really bugging me. And I had a good, maybe 20 pounds on me, definitely a minimum of 15 pounds I really needed to lose, and then maybe another 10 kind of for vanity purposes beyond that. But I had tried a few years earlier on my own to lose it. I really had very, very limited success. I really didn't know what to do. And I didn't have the time to research everything I needed. So I did absolutely need to outsource that to someone else.
Yeah, 100%. It's like again, like as you mentioned, like what do you do for work?
So I'm a journalist. I have a full-time journalism job covering education and immigration. I also have two little roles at Columbia University, and I had a little one at Northwestern, and I give speeches all over the country on immigration.
Wow, yeah, that's definitely not your everyday job, So especially when you have such high standards, such high status, and like such high job demands, as you mentioned, you don't have time, to be going on your laptop and just be looking through the research and like figuring everything out, because obviously there's more information than ever these days. But again, what is true and what is not, it can be difficult to know. So, Joe, what made you decide to work with me in the first place?
Um, I think I saw a couple of videos of yours. I had watched a lot of Instagram at the time, on fitness and health and things like that. And something about one of your videos kind of caught my attention. I think I wrote to you and I think you wrote me back. And I, appreciated when we got, to start talking that you were willing to work with someone like me. I told you I'm, significantly older than you. I was a little, worried about that. Like I said, I have this thyroid challenge. I'm also was raised in a super Italian American household. I live in New York City, so I eat a lot of pasta, a lot of pizza, a lot of bagels. And I told you I was completely unwilling to stop eating those things. I
Yeah.
also am not going to become vegan. I'm not going to become vegetarian. So I feel, with all of those challenges I was presenting to you, I was worried that, whether or not this would be a good fit. But I did tell you I'm not willing to give up any food at all, but I am willing to eat a dramatically less amount of that food, like
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cut those foods down significantly. But I just wasn't willing to eliminate them. So I had kind of strict parameters. I knew that having a diet or having a plan where I can't eat pizza, bagels, pasta, it's just not, I don't want to live like that. I want to enjoy my life and, do things appropriate for my Italian American culture. And so yeah, I just flat out wasn't going to do that. So I feel like, the fact that you even wanted to work with someone with all of those kind of challenges was, gave me, I was hopeful that it might work out.
So was that the thing, like, was that like the driving force, something that like made you decide to ultimately to join?
I would say the fact that when I presented you with these challenges, my age, the
Uh-huh.
hypothyroidism, the fact that I wasn't willing to completely cut out foods, nor was I willing
Yeah.
to become a vegetarian or, forgot what the other word was, but I'm always going to eat meat and fish. And the
Yeah.
fact that you wanted, me as a client and felt confident you could work with me, that was encouraging. I didn't want someone who was going, because food's so important to me. I'm a cook. I cook
Yeah.
every single day. I love cooking. It's very important. I've been cooking since I was a very little girl. Food is extremely important to me. I'm kind of picky. And so I didn't want someone who was just going to radically change my diet, as someone had tried years ago and just wanted to replace everything I would normally eat with things I did not like, I would not eat, I would never eat them in combination. She was a wonderful trainer, like in the gym type of trainer, but she felt food in her life was just the fuel I need to do my next workout. That's all it was for her. There was no emotional connection, no cultural connection. There was no, and I respect her. She looks amazing, good for her. She's a
Yeah.
lot older than me. She's truly a bodybuilder. She's great. That is not the life I wanted to live. I am not a
No.
bodybuilder. I'm a journalist and an author. I want to just have a lot healthier habits. And I was able to cut down, those foods like pizza, bagels, pasta, because I introduce more vegetables into my life. So I still have those things all the time. I have them like 3 or 4 times a week. I have not cut the frequency through which I eat those things, but I've dramatically cut the amount I eat. So I feel very satisfied. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. There's not a single thing I wouldn't eat today that I ate a year ago. I eat it all. I just don't eat as much. And if I
Yeah.
do kind of overindulge on one day, I will definitely keep it kind of a running count in my mind about making sure that I make up for that the next day, or just like in as I look over my calories in a week rather than a day, I'm always accounting for those things. I never ever did that before. There's a lot I learned here, and I have an Ivy League education. I am not dumb. There's a lot I learned here that I would never have found anywhere else that were very helpful. Oh, I also told you, here's another restriction you were able to meet. I will not take medication, supplements, anything weird. I don't know what it is. So I was like really narrow in what I was willing to do. And somehow you really, really made it work in a way I could not have done myself.
Yeah, 100%. I like you summarized that like very well. It's like now I don't know what to ask anymore. But I like when you mentioned like one of the things where like most coaches they actually have this bodybuilder style approach. Like if you go on Instagram and scroll, there are gonna be like 20 coaches on your feed offering fitness coaching, right? But so many of them like have their client results and like testimonials of like before and after of like all these shredded physiques. And it can be really intimidating because that kind of stuff, it's like really you have to be sacrificing a lot of things. And then most people think that like, okay, chicken, broccoli, and rice every single day, food
Mhm.
has to be boring, you have to be emotionally disattached from food, you have to go through blood, sweat, and tears, to achieve your goal. And that's what most people are led to believe because like it's 2025, more people than ever have been burned by those programs. But you don't have to do that. You can still have your cake and eat it too, or whatever the saying says. But basically, it's all about the quantities, it's all about manipulating the quantities. But you cannot just say like, oh, I'll just do portion control, or like I'll just count calories, because again, you have to be pre-planning accordingly, right? You have to know what, if I'm trying to eat less pizza, what can I eat more to be able to to be able to compensate for the increased hunger, right? Because if you just like eat less, then obviously it's gonna be difficult with the hunger, right?
That's very true. Right. I would say if I just tried to count calories on my own, either I don't know that I would achieve the same result, which is about 15 pounds of weight loss, or if I would sustain the same result, which I really don't think I have. Like, that's something that really impressed me. Like, after I really lost that weight, and it's roughly 15 pounds, the number just kept going down. Very rarely did it, inch higher. I didn't go back and forth in any way. It just kept going down very slowly, appropriate to someone almost 50 with slow thyroid. But it did keep going in that one direction. It made me very cognizant and aware of what I was eating. I had great elements in my what I would eat daily prior to this, but I definitely have increased plants and vegetables and leafy greens, things like that. So yeah, I'm not just eating fewer calories of food that doesn't is not nutritionally sound.
Yeah, 100%. I like when you've mentioned that you're like, hey, I'm not trying to be vegan or vegetarian. That's what
Oh
most
no.
people are frankly
That will
skeptical
not
about
happen.
when, yeah, because like there are so many people, and vegans and vegetarians are like less than 1% in this country, right? So like whenever somebody stumbles across my page or like YouTube channel, if it's your first time watching this video, then you might be thinking, well, it's cool, but like JJ, you are a vegan. How can you help me out? Well, where did I say that you have to be vegan or vegetarian to be able to get help? As long as you are willing to get help and is willing to work hard on getting help, and follow my instructions, you can achieve your goals without necessarily cutting out animal products. The only thing people have to be doing to be successful is to increase more vegetables and more fruits, right? Which is I guess like in 2025, it's a very taboo thing to say because people say, "Hey, do keto and you're gonna get in shape." So, Joe,
Right.
you said you had hypothyroidism. How has that affected your weight loss journey, and what would you tell anybody watching this who has like a similar condition or like a slower thyroid and who's like, "Hey, it's gonna be impossible for me to lose weight. Doesn't matter what I do."
Well, I definitely thought that. I had done some reading on the topic. If you're a woman, near my age and you have a slow thyroid, what can you expect? What should you be doing? And that's one of the reasons I did know that I needed someone else to research this, because the information was all over the map, from wackadoo theories. And you know how those theories take hold on Instagram and social. Suddenly everyone with hypothyroidism has to eat this or do this. And that And it was just, I'm a very well educated person and just seemed like nonsensical, contradictory, ineffective, dangerous, like thing, nothing I want to do with my body. I have one body. It needs to carry me through, God willing,
Yeah,
another several decades, I hope. And so I don't want to do
100%.
anything that's going to damage me. So I won't take supplements. I won't take any kind of I mean, I'm like, I take the bare minimum of what I need to survive.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really don't into that. So it's kind of like, I needed to change in a different way. And so, yeah, so I was really excited that you were able to, work through that. But prior to meeting you, how did the hypothyroidism affect weight loss? It makes it difficult. It makes it slower. I
yeah.
was pretty surprised that even having hypothyroidism, following what you had advised really worked. It wasn't, and I was surprised. I was very, very surprised actually. Between you being so much younger than me, I was like, oh God, this guy who's looks like, in his 20s is not going to necessarily know how to advise a woman approaching 50, or someone with hypothyroidism, which is something you at your age probably don't encounter a lot, but women in the 40s and 50s start to see a lot of that. And so I was worried, but what you had told me really, it worked. Like and it wasn't, without giving it away. It certainly wasn't a supplement or medication. That's flat out no from me. It wasn't giving up animal products. It wasn't even giving up dairy. Like it wasn't giving up anything at all, which is why it worked. Otherwise I wouldn't have done it. I eat
Mhm.
yogurt, I eat cottage cheese, I eat those things, maybe not at the certain times of day or at the frequency or the amount I might have eaten before, but I haven't cut out a single thing that I used to eat, at all, including like the occasional like Snickers bar. If I travel a lot, like I might grab
Yeah,
something, and I don't even sweat it. I don't even think about it because as long as I
yeah.
kind of keep a running count of what I'm eating and make sure I had a lot of veggies and other stuff that day, it's really not a big deal. Another thing I really loved about working with you, this was, I think, truly unique. You might not even recognize this in yourself, but when I worked with the other woman years ago, if I had eaten too much of something like, oh God, I kind of had a bad day, I kind of, had some whatever, an extra bagel or more pizza or whatever it was, I would feel bad, and then the person who was helping me would make me feel worse, like, just like, "Oh, well, you can't do that," God forbid. And I was fearful about that with you. Like, I really don't, I'm not a child. I don't need someone to chide me for what I'm doing. And one of the things I loved about you, and this you probably don't even recognize, it's just your nature, but you never once even raised an eyebrow about something I was eating. It was just, you looked at my calories, you're like, oh, well, you need to eat more veggies here. That day was kind of heavy on, this and that, but, just make sure tomorrow you have some whatever. And there was just total neutrality about what I was eating. It wasn't about, making me feel bad or punishing me or making me feel like I had, robbed a bank. It was just like, oh, okay, well, let's, consider that when you go through the rest of the week. Let's look back on that. What would you like to do more? What would you like to do less? It was just, there was no judgment, not an eyebrow raised about anything I did ever.
Yeah, didn't rob a bank. Don't need to feel like a criminal. Again, like I understand it because like I used to myself personally have an eating disorder a long time ago, and that's where like if you do something, right? If you eat something and you feel like you have cheated, or if you feel
Right.
like it was off plan or whatever, guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna create guilt.
Oh,
When it
yeah,
creates guilt, then you start to overcompensate the next day by trying like to starve yourself or go on a treadmill for several hours or like whatever or overall. And then what happens is that counterintuitively that extra guilt it creates shame, and then like you're like, okay,
definitely.
well, if I eat one piece I'm gonna eat 10 pieces because like I'm already
For
done bad
sure.
job, right? But like if you have
It
positive
makes you give up.
reinforcement, yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
makes you feel discouraged. It makes you feel like, well, I screwed up or I did something wrong and like I obviously can't do this. I'm not going to be successful, so forget it. And I
hmm
really appreciated that. It was like, okay, here's what I'm doing, here's where I'd like to make it better. Here's some, tricks and I don't mean tricks as in anything clandestine, but like, oh, why don't you try eating a little bit of this, a little bit of that might make me feel a little fuller. Then, and it'd be like, oh wow, and I would try it. And these are not bizarre foods. These are like foods already in my house
yeah,
that I love, they're
yeah,
nothing weird. It was like the most, open your pantry, these foods are there. Just eat a little bit more, but maybe replace it with something you would normally eat this or that. See if you can supplement this with it. But like very easy. I mean, my intake of food is really not radically changed from
yeah,
before, except the amount and adding more fruits and vegetables. Otherwise, what I'm eating, there's not a single food that I'm having now that I didn't have before. I can't think of anything
hmm
off the top of my head that I didn't have before or didn't
yeah.
like. And there are a
We
few
didn't
things
have
that
like
you right, and there are a few things you might suggest that I'm like, I know I don't like that, I'm not gonna do that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
and that's fine. I have my own ability to discern, but, I felt that there was nothing that you said that was just like, "Oh my god, I've never heard of this root that grows on the side of a tree in Madagascar twice a year that has to be flown over on the wings of doves," just like these ridiculous expectations. It was all
Yeah.
just like the food I have, no supplements, no vitamin, nothing. I will not put anything that I don't desperately need. And so there was, it's like really a very kind of common sense, but it's more than common sense though, honestly, because there were things you said that I did not know, hadn't heard elsewhere, and that really worked. So I would say it
Yeah.
was not simply a matter of, like I said, cutting calories or this and that. There were actual things I had never heard before that actually were very relevant.
So Joe, knowing that, if it's like common sense, but because like most people these days know it's 2025, there's more information than ever. Everybody knows what to do, that you have to eat less and move more. Based on that, why do you think if somebody is like skeptical or over the fence about getting help, why do you think they should still give it a try to work with me?
I found the accountability in the beginning was really helpful. I would say the only time that I felt any kind of constraint was maybe in the first month or two when I was shrinking the portions of food that I really love, like my favorites or my comfort foods, and I was really putting that down to an appropriate amount. That's maybe the only time that I felt like, oh, I kind of feel a little bit like I'm missing something, and that was the a difficult, and I wouldn't say particularly difficult, but the hardest part of a journey that I
Hmm.
actually thought was pretty easy, but the hardest
Yeah.
part would have been like the first couple months. And then I got so used to it, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I just kind of retrained my body, my mind. I still get my last night I had homemade pesto. It's one of my favorite dishes, and I had a little bowl of it. But I know now like how much 3 ounces of that looks like versus
Yeah.
before I was probably eating 5 or 6 ounces of that. I didn't even realize it. Well, I think I underestimated, what the calorie count and other things of the food that I was eating. So now I'm much more conscious. Oh my God, I forgot your question. Remind me
Yeah,
of your
so yeah,
question.
yeah, like keeping in mind, that like everything might sound like very intuitive. Why do you think somebody should still decide
All
to
right.
work with me?
I think the accountability of having someone check in with you every day to see if you're working out. Like there were some days where, I have three jobs. I'm a full-time journalist, have a little job at Columbia University. I lecture all over the country on immigration. I travel a lot. In the last 2 months, I think I've taken something like 15 flights or 16
Oh
because I'm
my
usually at home.
goodness, that's a
But,
lot.
my point is that, having someone ask me like, "Hey, did you eat healthy food today? Did you work out today? Did you, if you weren't able to go to the gym, did you walk around and hit a certain step count that you would really want?" Like having someone ask me that was extremely helpful, particularly in those early months. And eventually, one of the things I think is great about working with you is those things become, you really internalize them. And so you don't really need to necessarily be asked that,
Hmm.
moving forward after you've been, getting such assistance for like 6 months or so, and it really becomes rote in your life. It's like, oh, okay. But in the beginning, when I was changing some of the things I was eating and definitely changing the workout too really helped a lot. That's another thing I don't have time to do. And so it was really wonderful to have like a challenging, enjoyable workout adjusted to my specific needs because I had, back surgery a couple of years ago for
Hmm.
like out of control sciatic nerve pain. So that's something I have to factor into workouts going forward and to find that like perfectly accommodated. I even asked you a question, and this is really amazing. I thought this was so sweet of you to try and answer. I was like, what happens when your partner brings home super not so great for you foods on a regular basis and is of course like thin as a rail because he's a man and men hardly ever gain weight, at least this one doesn't.
Yep.
And I asked you that question because I was really frustrated. I was like, this person whom I love so dearly, like brought home like 6 donuts. I don't usually eat donuts. I eat bagels and pizza. I'm not a big donut person. But since it was like on the counter, it's like it's hard to ignore some like a special treat food that you don't normally have.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I was like, what happens? You don't want to impose, what you need to do on everybody else and become, really unlivable about it. And I
Mhm.
really love that you just genuinely thought about it from a very sincere place and came up with this very like Solomon-like resolution to the matter. It was like, wow, like it was definitely an out of the box question, not about exercise, not about what I should be eating,
Yeah,
but kind of like a lifestyle difference. And I
yeah,
really appreciated that you took it so seriously and answered it. And I shared it with my partner. I was like, okay, you need
yeah.
to read this. He was like, okay. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that you were really trying to help like all areas of my, my overall health and the foods I'm exposed to and the exercise I'm getting. Like I felt like you really considered so many different things outside the scope of your initial work.
Yeah, yeah, I know like you because like you said like you used to have like you had like also like some hair problems, you know, like
Oh yeah.
when it comes like to related to weight loss. And even though I'm not a hair expert, I still have to sit down, right, and still figure out, you know, what could be like the types of foods that could help, you know, with your hair strength and like your hair growth. Because at the end
Right.
of the day, it's very easy for somebody to take a look, and I'm gonna keep repeating it until the day I die. But most people, when they think about fitness, they think that like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna get a meal plan and a workout plan. But there's so much
Right.
more than that, because you can get a meal plan and a workout plan anywhere on the internet, you know. But people still somehow work with JJ. So as I mentioned, it would be very
Definitely.
easy just to isolate those two things and that and think like, okay, this is what's gonna get me successful. But people forget that you as an individual, you know, you have to have like a holistic approach, because if you're trying to do workouts and then nutrition but other areas of your life or your health are suffering, it's not gonna work, right? So that's why
Right.
it's overall like holistic coaching experience. You know, we have to take a look into areas of your life, whether it's like stress or sleep or like partner,
Right.
spouse, you know, with bringing in the food, and we have to figure out what we have to fix that is gonna actually keep driving the needle forward. Because if we're not able to fix those areas, it's not gonna work.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, yeah, I could say, and this is something I considered. I was like, maybe I should go to like a community college and like take a course on nutrition in addition to all I do. But I was
Yeah,
trying to figure out how do I get the right information? Well, clearly I don't have the time to do anything like that, but I feel like
yeah,
that's what it would take to find the right information. And even that wouldn't work because that wouldn't be specific to me. I'd still need
yeah,
to hire someone to say, okay, I have some knowledge now, but how do I put that in my own personal life with my, whatever, issues surrounding my health that are specific to me. And so, yeah, even that wouldn't have worked. I really needed to share my, all of that information with an individual who could then go do that work and add it to their own knowledge. Like they come in knowing, a certain amount and then they learn specifically about me and we're like, oh, okay, now for the specific to this person. Like I had told you, a number of years ago, I tried to really cut my calories down, but then I felt my hair was thinning and it really
yeah.
freaked me out, and I was like I stopped because I was like, "Well, I don't know how to solve that problem." And I certainly
Hmm.
my hair has, like, always been, huge, and so it was like, I just kinda, like, stopped in my tracks. I was like, "Well, forget that," you know? And so I definitely needed somebody to help, like, "Oh, okay, that's an issue that might be able to be addressed by a couple different things," and,
Yeah,
I think too, sticking rather than what happened in years past where that happened and I stopped entirely and just went back to my normal ways, sticking through that period, like, continuing on, even though that was a concern for me, but trying to find ways around it to make sure I had what I needed nutritionally. I didn't do that before. Like I wouldn't have done that.
hmm,
I wouldn't have had the support of somebody who was really looking at this issue with me and making sure it was addressed so that I could continue. And so that was really, really, really important. I could not have done that. I don't have the time to have done that on my own. And I can't, it's hard to hold yourself accountable in those beginning stages. Now I hold myself accountable entirely. It's
yeah,
really it's on my mind every day in a positive way. Like, what did I do for my body today? And in a really caring and like loving way, not in a way that's punitive. I feel like a lot of women have a lot of reasons to we have such difficult roles in our society, and one of them is like beauty, fitness, things like that, where women are always giving themselves hateful messages. I shouldn't have eaten that. It showed a weakness. I shouldn't have, we just have a lot of internal things like that. And so I feel like that has lessened a lot, as I'm eating healthier and I'm like, oh, good, look what I did for my body today. I had this other cool thing. I don't normally eat that kind of food, but I made
hmm,
this cool
yeah.
vegetable and like, oh, look at me, so I feel like just kind of the running reel in my mind specific to this issue has gotten a lot
Hmm.
better.
Yeah, 100%. At the end of the day, it's all about not just like following the plan, but also changing the mindset, the patterns, you know, the
Right.
habits in place. Because if you're not gonna change internally as a person, then it can become very easy. Because like when you're trying to do stuff on your own, you're like, it might work, it might not work. It's like trial and error. And then a couple months pass by, and you're like, it's not working anymore, and then people get super scared and then they quit and they don't know what to
Right.
change, right? But
For
when you have
sure.
somebody in place, then like we know what adjustments, what we have to pivot. That way it's not a disaster, you can still keep going, and then
Right.
ultimately become somebody who has their own knowledge, and you don't need to have that hand holding anymore, because like who would want to like keep paying a coach for the rest of their lives? Nobody,
Right.
right? So it's all about becoming self-independent. So Joe, any ending words?
I would say, this was definitely a worthwhile investment, and I feel that way because I hadn't gone up and down in my weight. I think it wouldn't have been worthwhile, or I would have walked away thinking like, I'm not sure about that if I had constantly done this, but I really just did this, and it might have been more like this. It wasn't like a start sharp decline. It was more like a
Yeah,
slow decline, but it was always a decline with like very
yeah,
rare half a pound gain here or there, but really nothing. And so I felt that was great. And I love that I'm able to monitor myself now in a much better way. I feel like um, ready to continue living a healthy lifestyle. It's like I have the knowledge, I can do it. And I know that I could call you if I needed help with workouts. And I've already asked you to help me with workouts to help because I don't have the time to research new workouts. So, like, I need to outsource that to someone else. And
exactly.
so I know I can call you, and I told you this before, if I go through a period, let's say some number of months from now, I kind of get off track and I do need help or accountability, I know I could call you and it
Yeah.
works. And it's also really nice too that I felt that you were like a really pleasant person. Like I really looked forward to hearing from you. Like when you would pop up, this is so lame, and you don't have to put this in the video because it's kind of funny. But I kind of
All good.
missed you when you were gone. I was like, oh, like 'cause I was like hearing
Aww.
from this very sweet friend who like
Virtual
cares
hug.
for your health. I know, right? I really did. I was like, I don't know if I want to like lose this guy. He's the only person in my life who's like regularly dealing with this important issue, which is my health, and
Yeah.
my overall nutrition and my exercise. And so it was like I did miss you. I really did miss hearing from you. Just a very pleasant way. And like I said, not being non-judgmental, being really helpful, coming up with alternatives. A couple of the exercises you had suggested for me, I tried them out. And with, having back issues, I worried about a couple of them. And so I didn't do them. It was like, no problem. Let's, replace it with something that works. It was like every obstacle that we encountered was not met with like annoyance or, well, why couldn't you? Or, you'll never believe this, but after I had that spinal surgery, and this is really serious, when I had that spinal surgery, I then encountered that same woman, my trainer in the gym. And to be honest, I feel like some of the things she had me training to do, like deadlifts, kind of led to what happened, not directly, but
Ooh.
indirectly. And she had me doing a
Yeah.
lot of things like hip thrusts, like things that just for a person with a sensitive back, I just felt like were
Yeah.
not the right thing. So I saw her after I had my surgery and I was finally back in the gym a couple months later. And I told her, like, by the way, I had spinal surgery and like some of the
Uh-huh.
things I was doing in the gym, I think really weren't good for me. And she actually encouraged me to do those things again. She's like, you should be deadlifting. You should be doing, and I was just blown away. She
Oh my
just had such
goodness.
a rigid view in her mind of what success and health and your body should be or look like and what you should be capable of doing. There was just like such rigidity, even after spinal surgery. And I just was like, I
Wow.
compare that to you and the way you were. It's like, oh, it hurts. You don't like it. Never do it again. Never think
No.
about it again. Erase it that you ever even knew this exercise happened. Like it was like so, willing to accommodate every possible problem, with ease, with like happy to do it. There was like
Yeah.
no attitude, no problems. Like that's what I'm here for, to help. I'm not going to tell you to do things that hurt you. So I appreciated that a lot.
Yeah, I guess like the ending thought I want to end up is with this. Like most people think that like you're gonna come in and coach is gonna like you'll have to follow the strict routine and the strict what's it called, ideology of the coach, but it doesn't matter because who's following the program, me or you? Of course you. So like
Right.
when a person comes in, I do my best to be able to basically go around their nutrition preferences, their workout preferences. Because if you do exercise that you hate, if you follow meals that you hate, you're not gonna stick with that. But if you were able to
Uh-huh.
develop something that you love and you look forward to, right, then it's gonna become easy. And when obviously we like to work with people whose personalities we like, right? So if I was an asshole, if I was shouting, well, obviously I would have no clients and I would suck.
Right.
So somebody please sign up to work with JJ. Joe, thank you very much. I think
Of
that was the
course.
interview of the decade, right? So if somebody wants to watch it, grab your popcorn, grab your coffee, you're gonna be in for the long run.
Yes, and I even told JJ, if there is a person out there who's on the fence, like I believe in JJ so much that I said, you know what, if they want to contact me through email, and JJ's not paying me, I'm an independent journal, I have a totally different job, but I believed in it so much that I feel like people should be, it encouraged. Like if they needed to hear from somebody who it really worked for, I would do that. And that's a big extension. I've never done that. I'm 49 years old. I've never done that for anyone in my life. But that I really felt that he was just excellent and kind and caring and consistent, happy to accommodate me in every way. Like I just had never met anybody like that. So it was in this field. And so it was really, really amazing.
Joe, thank you very much. Anybody who's watching this video, feel free to comment below. Feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram at BBM Coach. If you're skeptical about the service, I can shoot you. If you're obviously a serious person, I can shoot you Joe's contacts. You can chat with her briefly
For
to know
sure.
that this is not a scam. I'm a real person. I'm not an AI generated bot. And we'll be good to go. All right, guys. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.